Good evening, fam. I hope you don't mind me calling y'all fam. I consider you my family, my YouTube family, I should say. So I have my family, and then I have my YouTube family. Anyway, this is my third attempt at trying to make this video. My first attempt, after going through and completing the whole entire video, I realized I'm an idiot. Because when I went back to replay the video to see how it turned out, a little message popped up on the screen and said that there was no memory card in the camera. So I spent somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes making my video, all for nothing. Yeah. I'm an idiot. Not always, but yeah. So, my second attempt, after putting the memory card in the camera, I get about halfway through my video and my camera dies. So I had to charge it. It was dead. Deader than a freaking doornail. So, this, barring anything going wrong, I will get this video completed on my third attempt. If something should go wrong, I'm just going to quit for the night and go watch TV, and I will try and make the video tomorrow. So, I am opening with a question for y'all. How do you feel about hospitals? Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Does it matter one way or another? Is the hospital in your area good? Or are there problems? Do y'all have complaints about them? I am asking for a reason. Last weekend, I was in the hospital. I went in because I had a high fever. It was 103.5. I woke up Saturday morning and promptly started throwing up for what felt like a good 10 minutes. Granted, the only thing that was coming up was water, because that's all I had been drinking throughout the night. I drink water throughout the night. Well, that's all I was throwing up, was just water. But then probably within a half hour after I stopped throwing up, my fever started going up, my temperature, until it hit 103.5. So I called my son Jonathan, and he told me in no uncertain terms to get my booty down to the hospital ASAP. Because the last time I waited, the hospital staff yelled at me for waiting so long. And my first thought was it was COVID, because the last 3 times prior to last Saturday, when I've had temperatures up over 103 degrees, it was COVID. Each time it was COVID. I had no other symptoms whatsoever, just a high fever. Well, this time obviously I threw up Saturday morning. My stomach was queasy off and on for a good portion of the day. It was probably around 2 or 3 o'clock when I got to the hospital. My son couldn't take me because his wife had the car. So I had to find a ride. I finally wound up asking my roommate, who agreed, but, took his sweet ass time getting downstairs to take me to the hospital. He wouldn't take me in his car because it was too dirty, and insisted that he had to take me in my car. I had a big problem with that because nobody drives my car. Only my kids are allowed to drive my car. I don't let anybody else drive my car. So I wound up having to take all the keys off my key ring except for the car key. But anyway, he got me down to the hospital. I got checked in. By the time I actually got to the hospital, my temperature had dropped a little bit and was at 101 point something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then they took me back to the ER room, and started checking checking my blood pressure, my oxygen, temperature, all that stuff. And then a nurse came in with, one of those big long Q-tips that they use for COVID testing, and, shoved it up my nose, what felt like all the way into my brain, and swished it around, and then promptly got a nosebleed, because every time I get a COVID test, I get a nosebleed for like 5 days afterwards, which is rather annoying, and I don't know why, and they keep saying, oh, it was probably just popped the blood vessel for 5 days. Anyway, they also did a urine sample, and one of the nurses was explaining to me that when they do that test, they don't just test for COVID, they test for different strains of COVID, they test for flu and different strains of flu, and I guess they test for a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, a couple hours later, the doctor comes back in my room and says, well, everything is negative. So all my tests came back negative, everything. And then he proceeds to tell me that he thinks there might be a little bit of pneumonia and bronchitis. And I'm like, okay, if all my tests came back negative, how can you say there's pneumonia and bronchitis? I'm not coughing, I'm not wheezing, I'm not short of breath. I have no symptoms to back that up. I had no symptoms for pneumonia, no symptoms for bronchitis, and I've had both of those before. So I know what it's like to have pneumonia and bronchitis. I didn't have symptoms for either one of those. And so they went and did whatever they were going to do and kept monitoring, everything. Hooked me up to, well, they didn't do that yet. So anyway, the doctor left and then comes back again about an hour later and says, well, we're gonna keep you overnight. We're gonna move you upstairs. And I'm like, why? They wouldn't tell me why they were keeping me overnight until after I got upstairs. And the doctor comes in after the nurses get done getting me all hooked up. They hooked me up to one of those heart machines. I forget what they're called. An EKG, I think is what it's called. Where they put like those sticker thingies all over your body and whatnot, and put an IV in for medications, which I didn't understand, because by the time they got me moved upstairs, my fever was back down to normal. I had a normal temperature by the time before they even moved me upstairs. My temperature had gone back to normal, and I felt fine. I had a slight headache, yeah, but I felt fine. But they moved me upstairs anyway. And then the doctor comes in after they get done hooking me all up and whatnot, and I asked him again, I said, why am I staying overnight? If everything came back negative and I'm feeling better, I'm not sick, why am I staying overnight? And he said, well, it's because your oxygen levels are low. Okay, but I was sick. I came in sick. My oxygen levels are going to be low. They always drop when I'm sick. That's normal for my body. That's a normal thing that occurs in my body. When I get sick, my oxygen levels drop. Not a lot, but enough. And so I was like, okay, fine. Can I at least order dinner? They said yes, I could order dinner. So I did get dinner. It was a crappy dinner. Never eat eggs again at the hospital. They tasted like plastic. Anyway, so I spent Saturday night in the hospital. When I woke up Sunday morning, I didn't get a whole lot of sleep. It's kind of hard to sleep in the hospital because they come in every 2 to 4 hours. How are you feeling? We need to do this. We need to do that. How are you feeling? Oh my God. I cannot even tell you how many times I heard that question. How are you feeling? I'm fine. I just want to go home. But, and then of course every time I had to go to the bathroom, I had to call the call nurse. and they had to, you know, disconnect everything. And one of the things that kind of pissed me off about that whole disaster was that I understand that they have to help, especially for people like me who are a fall risk because of my back injury. Not only did they talk to me and treat me like I was a child on the way to the bathroom, and like holding my shirt for dear life and whatnot, which was very annoying, but then I get into the bathroom and the nurse was like, "Do I need to pull your pants down for you?" No, I'm a grown-ass adult. I can pull my own pants down and I can pull my own pants back up. Thank you very much. Now leave. And, you know, and then, of course, before I even get done, the nurse comes back in. "Are you done now?" "Yes, thank you." And, you know, they walk me back to my bed and hook me all back up. Well, after about the third time of going through that BS, I figured out how to unhook everything myself and just took myself to the bathroom with my cane. I had my cane there with me, and then got back to bed and hooked everything all back up, and they never knew I even left the bed. But anyway, Sunday morning, when I woke up, I had, for the first, I think, couple hours of the morning, I had a male nurse who was, I guess, the charge nurse for that 2 hours or whatever. And of course he comes in and, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. I just want to go home." And he turns around and crosses his arms and looks at me and says, "Well, we're keeping you for another night." And I'm like, "Are you a doctor? How the hell do you know? You know, did my doctor give you permission to tell me that? What right did a nurse have to tell me that they were going to keep me another night?" That angered me so badly. And I'd had it by that time. And on top of that, another nurse come in to take blood because apparently they needed to do a few more tests. Well, when she did, she came in to take my blood. That's what she did to me. She blew a freaking blood vessel or vein, whatever it is. And that's what happened. And it's still very tender. And there's a lump, like from here all the way down, all the way down to about here. There's a lump about this long on my arm. And I showed it. I showed it to my doctor. Went in for my follow-up yesterday. And he told me to just, you know, keep an eye on it. If it gets worse, to go back in and see him right away. Otherwise, he said it should just start dissipating in a few days. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So after that, after the male nurse told me that they were going to keep me for another night, I got really angry. I called my son almost in tears because I felt fine. I didn't feel like I needed to stay any longer. And so when my actual doctor came in like 2 hours or an hour or something like that after the male nurse told me I was going to be staying for another night, he asked me how I was feeling, and I told him I was fine. I just want to go home. And so he checked everything, checked my heart, checked my lungs, looked at the oxygen machine behind me, and he said, "Well, I'll go ahead and just start your discharge papers, but I'm sending you home with oxygen." I'm like, "Why? I'm not going to need it. I'm fine." And he said, "Well, it's either send you home with oxygen or make you stay another night." I'm like, "Fine, whatever." So it took a couple hours for them to get all the paperwork and shit ready for me so I could leave. And it was roughly about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I finally got back home. It felt so good to be back home in my own bed. And I did use the oxygen for Sunday night, but Monday morning when I woke up, I took the oxygen off and shut it down and hadn't used it at all. until I went to my follow-up visit with my regular doctor, which was yesterday. And so I had, you know, a long chat with my doctor, and I told him about the whole oxygen thing, and he said, okay, well, he told me, he said, if you don't need it, then go ahead and just call him and tell him to come and pick it up. And I said, well, I can't do that. The guy that dropped all the oxygen off said that you have to be the one to tell them that I no longer need it. So my doctor was like, all right, well, let's check your oxygen. And if it's good, I'll fax a letter over to the oxygen company and have them come and pick it up. I said, okay, cool. And like I knew it was fine. He checked my oxygen levels. It's where it was supposed to be. And so he faxed that letter immediately over to the oxygen place. The shit's still sitting here. They haven't come yet and picked it up. But it's funny because what the hospital diagnosed me with was hypoxia, which is low oxygen, and SIRS, S-I-R-S, which, if I remember, gotta remember this correctly, systemic inflammatory respiratory syndrome. I think that's what it's called. My paperwork is locked up currently, so I can't look it up right now. But I asked my doctor, I said, what exactly does that mean? Because in my eyes, it means they don't know what the hell it was. They don't know why I got sick. Because everything came up negative. And so my doctor was explaining it to me, and he used a really cool analogy. I just can't remember how he said it. But basically what it boils down to is that I came into contact with something, or I ate something that sent my body into an alert, which caused me to get sick. But it didn't last, because by Saturday night I was fine, except for a very slight headache, and the headache was gone by Monday. So essentially nobody knows what it was. Nobody knows why I got sick. But the reason why I asked the question at the beginning is because normally I don't have a problem with our local hospital. I know a lot of people here locally complain about our hospital, but I've never had a problem with it, with our hospital until this past weekend. You know, when they're like, well, we don't know what it is, we can't find anything wrong with you, everything is coming up negative, but we're keeping you overnight anyway. Like, and what's worse was that they wouldn't tell me why until after they moved me to my room upstairs. That irritated the crap out of me, because it's like, okay, you're not communicating with me. You need to tell me what's going on with me. It's my body. I need to know what's going on with my body. But they wouldn't tell me anything. All they were saying was that all the tests were coming up negative. We don't know what's wrong with you, but we're going to keep you overnight anyway. That, and the one dumbass male nurse who decided to take it upon himself to tell me that they were keeping me overnight again, even though it wasn't true, and the dumbass nurses that decided they were going to treat me like a baby. I didn't appreciate that at all, and I did put complaints in for all of it. Because, like I said, normally I've never had a problem with our local hospital until this past weekend. Anyway, I have more to complain about. Not anything to do with the hospital, just BS that's going on here at home with one particular roommate. And after fighting so much with trying to get this video made, I'll wait and do that one maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Anyway, I'm tired. I love y'all. Have a good rest of your evening, and I'll catch y'all on the next video.